I'd like to introduce now Wenda Millard. Wenda is a partner in MediaLink, one of the amazing companies today that basically links up all of media, marketing, advertising, entertainment, Hollywood, technology. Did I get that all right, Wenda?
Pretty much.
All right, an amazing company. Wenda Millard, everybody. Let's offer our hand.
So we are all experiencing how technology utterly transforms businesses, societies, people, process, and especially conventional wisdom. But technology also transforms language. Basic words like, space, tablet, content. Those words have been altered or redefined entirely, or today we might say reimagined, as we move even deeper into the digital age. Such is the fate that has befallen one of the most exciting words anybody in business can ever hear, growth. The simple definition the word used to have, getting bigger, is no longer sufficient. Today, growth is highly dependent on how deftly organizations can deliver diversification and innovation to their businesses without sacrificing their corporate culture. In the 1980s, when Chiat Day rose from obscurity in Orange County, moved to Los Angeles, became the hottest shop on the planet, and blew up the old notion that only agencies in New York, Detroit, and Chicago could handle national accounts, Jay Chiat became famous for the refrain, "How big can we get before we get bad?" Decades later, we're still tormenting ourselves with the same question. Yet in our current reality, growth breeds complexity that it would have been entirely incomprehensible to Jay Chiat at the time he first uttered those words. In a world where there is endless opportunity for innovation and diversification, we as business leaders engage in a constant struggle to get big without getting bad, to grow our businesses like fractals that display the same patterns, the same DNA at every scale. The key question that I challenge all of us to think about today, how do we scale our businesses without undermining their core values and unique culture? I imagine everyone in this room already devotes considerable time to answering this, but if you don't know how to approach this challenge and affect the change that comes with it, you'll want to learn quickly. Because one thing our marketing and media world is not, is patient. Our panelists today attack this reality from every angle. They've had considerable success keeping the fires of innovation stoked and the fires of inspiration stoked and their culture intact even as they grow their businesses. I'd like to introduce you to our panelists now as they come on up stage. We have, and you all can come up together. We have Shelley Zalis, who's the CEO of Ipsos OTX. John Musinski, who's the Chief Investment Officer of Spark SMG. Anthony Young, who's the CEO of Water Cooler Group. Kat Greenleaf, who's the host of Talk Stoop and USA Daytime. And Adam Schlachter, who is the Chief Investment Officer of Digitas. Welcome, everybody. So, all right. So for the sake of today's conversation, we've defined growth as diversifying and innovating a business. Would you have anything to add to the definition of growth beyond diversifying and innovating business? And let's talk for sort of our opening round on some of the ways that your companies are diversifying and innovating. So jump ball, anybody.
Okay, the Gloss Network, nail salons. Who ever thought when I entered journalism school that women across the country were going to be hearing my voice while they were sitting there getting their nails done? So to me, that is innovation and growth. And we hit huge numbers because of that. LA Transit buses, huge numbers because of that. Very hard to get ratings in the same way, but to me, that's innovation.
Shelley.
I think innovation is a strange word, and I think we use it to capture everything. Mm-hmm. I think innovation is evolving what we're currently doing, dotting I's, crossing T's, and just doing it better. And then there's transformation. And I think transformation is really what we need to be thinking about in today's day and age, and especially in the digital world where, consumers are pulling what they want, where they want it, how they want it. And I think the way we do business today doesn't work, and we can't just innovate. We have to transform. And I think transformation takes courage, takes bravery, takes passion, because takes being willing to fail to succeed, takes being curious, takes being bold, and doesn't take no for an answer. Because I think most people are so afraid of change that they get defensive and they say, no, we don't need it, no, we don't want it, no, no, no. It's about yes, and it's about we can, and it's about finding solutions, and it's about just going for it.
For the past 30 plus years, Digitas has been transforming constantly from a data and direct marketing, direct response services firm to a digital media and creative shop to a full service marketing firm with data and digital at the core. We're constantly evolving, we're constantly transforming and diversifying both the types of clients that we bring in, the types of engagements that we take on, and the types of skills that we have in-house. And that goes as far as the entry-level people that we hire and we bring into our intern programs where we recruit from, to the career path that we offer people and put them on, so they're not just sort of sat in a box. And you're a creative, you're a marketer, you're an analyst, and you only go down those paths. And more and more, it's many of those people sitting together in the same teams, sort of irrespective of what their label.
A different level of collaboration than you might have had 30 years ago.
Everyone's creative,
Yeah.
everyone's analytical, and everyone's got a marketing hat on.
I was intrigued that you want to describe growth as innovation and diversification, because I think a lot of companies, and arguably agencies, haven't grown because of innovation. They've grown because they've done something really well and have been able to execute against it. And I think arguably, I guess because the agency business is a fairly mature business, when someone innovates, it's pretty quickly agencies will replicate that. So a number of years ago, Naked was the hot, bright, shiny kind of object which had communications planning, and very quickly every other agency sort of caught on and were able to replicate. I think diversification is probably more a strategy for growth, is what I'd describe it. And that's where a lot of agencies have been able to do that. If you take MediaStorm, which is one of our companies, which was the kind of founding business for Watercooler Group, we're essentially a business that focused purely on media and purely in the entertainment space. And in fact, in 2012, 96% of our revenues was entertainment clients. But over that business has quadrupled for us in the last 2.5 years. And about 80% of our new revenues, new business is coming from...
So that is a form of diversification.
That is a form, but I think we got there by, I guess, innovating in a very tight vertical space of the business and have been able to kind of diversify our client base.
I have to jump in to just say water cooler, Naked. If you have those words instead of 3 letters and 4 letters, what the fuck do you expect?
Exactly.
You better be wild and crazy.
You got it.
And live up to that, because that's like a cool name.
You're wild and crazy, obviously.
John, you've been at this for a while. What do you think about growth or diversification and innovation key drivers?
I like the name or the word transformation. It's what we've been doing at Spark for the last 2.5 years or so, and the reason we've been doing it is because the media marketplace, the consumer behavior has transformed. And what we're doing is just trying to find a new way to, one, to reach these consumers, reach them in a new environment, to engage with them, but to add value to the equation for all of our clients. And as we're trying to market their brands, we have to find new ways. And whether that's through diversification, or whether that's through innovation, we have to find ways to help them sell more of their products or services. And so at the end of the day, this is all about transformation, because that's what's happening before us. And either you get on board or you get left behind.
So what was, again, to anyone, what was the most inspired move that any one of you ever made to manage growth within your organizations? What would you consider to be your most successful or inspired move?
I would say to just keep wanting more. Some might call that greedy, but when I heard the words NBC everywhere, I was like, I don't know what the hell that is, but I want it everywhere. That is awesome. So when they said, we'll start with the cabs, I said, great, but what about the gas pumps? I heard there's gas pumps, great, we're gonna go with that. We're on screens now in so many places that we almost can't keep up with it, but we keep saying yes because I don't want to get left behind, as you said, and it's a plus and a minus, right? Doing more, we reach more people, people know the brand, talks to you, you're the girl with the dog on the steps and the sneakers, not today. At the same time, though, it's hard to keep up. So our most successful move is saying yes. It's also been a little bit of a challenge as well.
Anthony, you've done a lot of work in sort of what I would call the innovation space, and you've done a lot of different things. What would you consider your most inspired move to create growth?
Well, it's very easy to talk about growth when you're a startup and you're small and you're building something from scratch.
Coming off the floor.
It's really tough to do it when you're a bigger organization and going through turmoil as well. And probably the story that I'm most proud about was when I ran an agency quite a number of years ago. We lost our biggest client, P&G at that time. It was over half of our business. And and we were part of a holding company. And so I think the thing that we did was we didn't lay off one single person in that.
Whoa.
And
That was drama.
Yeah.
and which sounds crazy. Some people left obviously to go with the business. And we said, right, we're going to stay together as a team. We're committed to the people in the agency. 22 months later, P&G came back, and they actually then sort of said, oh, well, we're going to put the business up for review again. And we were invited to pitch that account. And our story for our pitch was, this is what we've done to make ourselves a better agency after you fired us. And they agreed. They gave us the business back, and again, that was a big growth story. But getting through turmoil and managing people, which is so key to your business, and showing them that look, we're not going to hire you in good times and fire you in bad times, gave us a real big boost.
So it's really directed toward your employee base versus externally.
Oh, it has to be, because our business, at least, is very, very solely focused around talent and people.
Yeah, and I think if you look at one of the things that I was involved with, where the fact of the matter is, most agencies are dominated by very young folks, millennial groups. People complain about how they are to deal with, how they are to manage. But at the end of the day, if you embrace the insights that you normally drive these insights for your clients' businesses, but those insights are there to be driven in your own company. And once you embrace the things that are important to them and bring them into your culture and bring them into the development of your culture, amazing things happen. And that's going back to this whole transformation thing. Instead of doing bring your kids to work day, we do bring your parents to work. And we had 200 parents come from all over the country to understand what the hell we do.
That is absolutely
And we have reverse mentoring, where I have actually young millennials teaching me ways of interacting with social media, with computers, and whatever it might be, so that they can end up contributing more to that. And on Fridays, and instead of just having them leave the office after a long work week, with not a positive thought on their mind regarding the company they work at, we have what we refer to as Fridge Friday. And
You get them drunk.
we get them drunk, and we let them
Get
go
them drunk.
Wow,
go home for.
what goes around comes around. And,
We let them go home on a Friday night and say, what a
Yeah.
great company we work for.
Well, I'd like to stay on that, because I actually had a question here about reverse mentoring and some of the other things that companies are doing that defy some of the conventional models. I have to say that the notion of having what used to be called a pour, P-O-U-R, on Friday afternoons, it's absolutely not new, but it's new to them.
Yep.
And so that's great. What are some of the other things that you've done that aren't conventional to create or preserve your culture?
Well, first, I guess it depends on the agency you work for, because every day is Friday for us.
Wow.
Always wasted.
But, well, we're creative. You need a catalyst for it. No, I love the notion of reverse mentorship, because what we did over the summer is actually take our interns and have them work on the agency as a client. We had them teach us what their media habits were, the way that they think, the way that they connect with brands, the way that they connect with one another, with screens, with information, with the whole crazy ecosystem that we're all talking about, constantly trying to figure out what to do. And we gave them briefs and said, forget about what you're learning in school and what you're going to learn here in a different department that you might be working on. Here's a brief. You're coming in to see client X. Here's who they're trying to reach. You're the target. How would you market to yourself? And we put them through a series of exercises over 8 weeks, where at the end of it, we actually took a bunch of these groups and brought them into the clients themselves to have them present their work. And it was eye-opening.
That's great.
And it was validating, because it sort of helped people step out of being in a focus group of one and either being all in on something or totally dismissive.
How did the clients respond to that?
They wanted them in on a monthly basis.
Yeah.
And I said, well, they're not full-time employees yet, but we're working on that.
Shelley, you spent a career innovating, and you always have creative suggestions. Every time I see you, you're running over to somebody going, I have an idea for you. So in your own company, you built and sold to Ipsos a couple of years ago. What do you think that you might have done that is very different from a conventional standpoint? Did you have some unconventional practices that helped you accelerate growth?
Yeah, well, first of all, I want to say you had alcohol. I live and breathe by chocolate. So, we always have chocolate. And I think I have never been conventional, not because following rules is a problem, because it makes life really simple to follow rules, but I have always broken the rules because they didn't make sense, and I created new ones. So I don't think I ever lived in a box to have to go think out of the box. I think I had to create the new boxes. And just to the growth, for me, I never had anything to follow. I was one of the pioneers of online research, migrating research from telephone to the internet in a day and age where only wealthy old men with broadband were online, which is hardly a representative population. And people doubted me. And, no, it's not ready, it's not ready, it's not time. Well, when is the right time? The right time is when you decide to make it the right time. So I had to I remember making my first business plan and people saying to me, well, you need to write a business plan. And I'm like, well, how am I supposed to write a business plan? There's nothing to follow. I don't know no one even thinks online is going to be it. So I said, I'm going to make this shit up. And I'm just telling you, I'm going to give you a full of shit business plan, but if you want one, I'll give it to you. And so I wrote one. And of course, I'm so competitive with myself, I had to beat it, right? And I had to build the market because I wasn't going to fail. And I had to bring people along with me that weren't the most seasoned researchers, because I couldn't get them because they were all in the goody traditional companies. I had to find people with passion, that were curious, that wanted to break some new rules to create the new standards. And people always used to say to me, being the first was hard because you had to make all the mistakes. Being the second comes in, they pick up some of the leeway that the first goofed on, and being the third is the sweeper, and that's always the best. I had to be the first, the second, and the third, because I wasn't going to let the second and third beat me.
So one of the things that you did that was not conventional then was hire a certain type of person versus sort of the resume with the skill sets defined and all that. So looking for people who shared your passion.
My first assistant couldn't type. Couldn't type.
That's highly unconventional in an assistant.
Made mistakes, would book me 3 lunches and forget to cancel 2. I lived in Hollywood. But he had passion and soul and charisma, and he's been with me for 16 years.
Can he type now?
No, I do my own, because now I can do my own. But I love him, and he's part of the fabric of who I am and what I do, and that matters to me a lot.
What about anything else? I mean, I love the story of the reverse mentoring and bringing in the interns and having them focus on the agency as a client, then bringing them to clients. What else can you think of that has been a bit unconventional that has actually helped you grow?
I'd say the most transformational thing that has happened at Digitas in the past 6 years or so, is before I joined, but it has only continued to accelerate every year, is what we did around the New Front, which was creating a new marketplace for the digital content story-making world that has started to consume sort of every aspect of marketing. And if you think back to a few years ago when YouTube was starting to take off and become more of a commercial success, and content marketing had the barrier to entry kind of lower to the floor because production costs were down and studios were popping up everywhere, and anyone with the right equipment could produce their own show, in fact, from their own living room, or bedroom even. Spotting that early and understanding that it was a new marketplace to be formed, and it was going to start to disrupt how and where we place our bets, and trying to wrap our arms around that for our clients and for the industry as a whole was extremely transformational. And we created new roles. We have a whole team dedicated to what we call social content, which isn't just understanding how and where different social channels work to tap into communities, but how to create things for them to participate in. Not just how to know who is creating stories, but how to work with them to actually create narratives for brands to be a part of. And every year we put a showcase together that by and large has grown probably 100% year on year in terms of the attendance, in terms of the people that we bring on stage, and in terms of the clients that get engaged with it. And it gave way to working with some big publishers like YouTube and Hulu and Yahoo and the IAB to formalize it over the past couple of years and turn it into an annual force in this space, alongside the upfront in television, alongside when annual budgets are being set and clients are considering all the different touch points that they can reach and engage various audiences. And I think more and more these things aren't sort of separate and distinct entities, but they are coming together because it's the same audience. There's just this myriad ways to reach them and this sort of endless spectrum of opportunity. So for us to be able to spot that early on and actually harness it and develop teams around it and develop an approach around it for our clients to help shepherd them through was a huge part of the growth and transformation of the agency.
John, you mentioned the word culture. And if you look at sort of the growth rate, if you look at accelerated growth in some companies, I'd love to hear from the panelists how you maintain a culture that you like. I mean, there are definitely parts of a culture as you grow that you would love to drain out. But how do you keep the parts of the culture that you love and that you consider to be key contributors to that growth? How do you keep that alive as you grow? And then as we're talking about that, there are several people here who have sold their companies, or their companies have merged or bought others, where you have very distinct or high definition cultures that may or may not mesh. How do you preserve the parts of the culture that you think contributed to your success?
Yeah, I think that the automatic assumption is that growth works against your culture and makes it more difficult. I don't necessarily tie the two together. In fact, over the last 2.5 years, we've quadrupled in size, yet our culture has never been stronger.
What do you attribute that to? Because I do think
it is so
that's
hard.
unusual.
Alcohol.
Yeah.
It is so hard that it's simple. That it all comes with a very clear vision and a very clear communication of that vision to the organization. But the most important part, in my opinion, is having the executive team that is supposedly running this company behave the same way. That they believe in that vision and they make it very clear what they want the company to stand for, and that's how they act day in and day out. When you then embrace the employees within the organization and let them be heard, all it does is build a culture. I mean, I was fortunate enough to be part of, the building of Starcom back in the late 90s. Right. And, we had what I referred to as, just an industry-leading culture. Everybody wanted to be there, and even though we were in Chicago. And I now see a very, very different sized company in Spark, but living the same rules, the same ideas of clearly communicating what we're looking for, why we're doing what we're doing, why our employees are important to us, and then empowering them. Now that's easy talk, but you have to live that. You have to show the folks in your organization that you truly, truly believe that.
I think it's also a culture of transparency and authenticity and care. You know, one of the things that, you know, I ran a lifestyle company, and I didn't even know what a lifestyle company was. And it was because I was a mother, you know, of 3 and a wife, and I do a lot of nonprofit, and I was a CEO, and I was all those things. And you know, when you have 5 people, you scream across the desk, "Hey, what's up? What's up?" When I had 250 employees, it's a lot harder to keep everyone connected. I called every single employee between Christmas and New Year to say hello. I talked to their mothers, their brothers or sisters, their aunts or uncles, and then they started calling me. I just wanted to know who they were, and it was a culture of care. And we shared the good, bad, and the ugly. We played hard. We fought hard. We didn't talk behind each other's backs. I shared all the positives, the negatives. When we were doing well, I talked about what was doing well. When we weren't doing well, I talked about what we weren't doing well. And we rallied together. And it was our company. And we cared about it. And when people care, great things happen. And then when I sold my company, one of the things that, you know, I had a company of 250 selling to a company of 16,000. And I read something by an amazing author, Simon Sinek, and he said that the best leaders are those that inspire, not those that motivate. And he said, and the greatest leaders are those that are caregivers, because we nurture and we care and we bring that passion. And when you do a merger and you merge company or you do an acquisition, the company that's being acquired, those employees did not opt in to go to that new company. They actually chose not to go to a big company. So how do you make all those people feel like part of that company, that it was a choice? And you have to take care of those people. It's not about numbers and this person's going to go into this group and this. You have to think about what those people coming in want and care about, and not just push them into the subordinate role because you already have the senior person there. And those things matter a lot, and your employees feel that. And so I think it's about passion, people, of course, process, but most importantly, transparency.
Well,
Anthony, you've been through.
Yeah, well, Water Cooler Group's an interesting company because we have, you know, we're about 9 years old. One of the founders still is in the company and still very active, Craig. And probably the most important way that we keep the culture is in how we recruit. One, we spend a lot of time recruiting. People who've joined Water Cooler Group have said to me stories. It took me 9 months to get into this company, and that's pretty typical. We start a conversation and we get to know people. We don't hire fast because I think that's the quickest way to kill your culture, is just to hire really quickly because you just want an account, and be very pragmatic about it, and suddenly that changes you. So we take a long time to recruit. When we do, we sell them our vision. We say, look, this is what we're about. And so people either buy that or they don't buy that. And because we're not quick to hire, because we're trying to be pragmatic.
But that does require a level of patience that's not usually associated with growth.
Correct. But the culture thing, I think, is really important because we're a people service organization. The third thing we do is we make everyone do a project. It doesn't matter if you're
before they're hired.
Before they're hired. It doesn't matter whether you're a graduate or whether you're the president. We want to see how you think. And yeah, we lose people in that recruiting process because people have got a job here and but we take that time to do that. And I think that's really important because, and in every one of those projects, Craig who is our founder, who's not involved in every piece of business, reviews each one of them and gives us a kind of point of view on it. And so by using that kind of as a filter of who you bring into the organization, helps you to establish a kind of consistent culture of the type of people and the type of qualities that you want. And then, because you're in a company of like-minded people, hopefully that culture continues.
Everything that they said. It's a bit of each of that. Talk Stoop in particular in USA Daytime is in a funny position because we're a little island on a slightly bigger island owned by a massive island. And so to keep all the islands talking and working together sometimes takes a great deal of mediation and patience. And I think what's the most important is that everybody shares the attitude that we want it to work. Now, how I want it to work, how someone else wants it to work, sometimes that takes a bit of communication, but transparency is a word that I like to use a lot. I don't want anyone talking behind anyone's back. We can all put it out on the table. Hopefully, the table's gonna look the same by the end.
Question about who you consider in any of your companies the closest to a cultural officer. Who is really the chief cultural minder, if you will?
I mean, it's sort of a cop-out to say it's everyone's job.
But somebody has to own that.
Someone does have to own it. And we do put it on everyone to take opportunities and contribute to the culture of the agency, whether they're creating something new, they're bringing in new partners, they're working in the community, in the professional development space, or in the physical community they're in. The presidents of each of our offices, each of our regions, really do own that in coordination with the other senior leaders. We have things like Community Service Day, where the whole office shuts down and we go out and volunteer as teams of hundreds of people in different parts of the cities and communities that we actually live and operate in to give back. We have people constantly volunteering for whether it's charitable organizations or professional organizations where their time can make an impact.
And is that organized by the heads of the different regional offices, or is there
It's the heads of the different
central?
regional offices, but the initiatives themselves are a bit more universal. Whether it's giving back to community or being a leading voice and contributing to the industry and the angle of the industry that you're in, media, creative, analytics, whatever that might be. Whether that's getting people to guest lecture at different universities, or whether that's having them form groups within the agency to keep people connected to different topics and different events. But the people that run the show live and breathe that, and they've been each doing it for a very long time, for a number of years, coming up through each agency. So it's an experience that they've had, that they've been part of developing, that they need to live and breathe for people to actually believe in it.
John, you spoke as if you are the chief cultural officer, and yet you are the CEO.
Well, I'm the CIO. Mr. Booth is,
Right.
he's running the show. This is his turn. We do have a culture officer. And
You do, that literally has that title?
Yes.
What's the job?
Wow.
Well, it's a gal who had worked within SMG for a long time. She decided to go on and become a coach, and wanted to stay in the media business. And so we started with a little part-time media and a little part-time culture, and the culture's taken over. And so she is a little bit of the coordinator, a little bit of the orchestrator, but probably the number one thing that she brings to the table is that she listens real well. And as much as I want to say my door's open and Booth's office is open, at the end of the day, there are some folks that are intimidated by that. And Michelle has a real good way of listening to what's going on in the halls and recommending things. And I mean, something as simple as we have what we refer to as Zen in the Den. On Monday and Wednesday nights, we have yoga. And then we'll have a meditation session. And those are ideas that are coming from our employee base. Michelle's then communicating those to Chris and I, and we take it from there.
I like that, Zen in the Den.
It's a good one. I also think that culture doesn't come in a handbook. And I think we talk a lot about, global and, the rules, but we have to adapt locally. And I think each office, now Ipsos operates in over 83 countries. Every market, every region, every office is so unique and so different, and I think culture is experience. I don't think it's rules, do this, do that. It's how people feel. And I think that it has to be very organic. And I love that it's a woman that is, running your culture, because it's deep feeling, it's care. Not that men don't have that, but it's listening skills, and it's adaptability, and it's flexibility, and it's all of those things. I mean, we had yoga, and we had candy jars, and we had Bagel Fridays, and it wasn't just to say we have all this stuff. We have it so that you as team members can work together across the way and learn about each other and create that relationship, because when people have great relationships, great things happen, and that's how you do cross team building and all that kind of stuff. And when I sold to Ipsos, they didn't have those kind of things, and they wanted that to all go away so that every office was the same. And I said to them, I'm not going to follow your rules, follow ours, and add yoga in all of your offices, and add candy jars in everyone's offices, and add Bagel Fridays. So they ended up with Bagel Fridays.
Ours are Mondays.
As much as
fruit.
As much as our clients are our biggest advocates, our employees are even bigger. I mean, they're the ones. If you look at the tenure of anniversaries that we celebrate on a regular basis every month, it's celebrating and recognizing people who've been with us for these milestones in time. There's as many 5+ year, 10+ year sometimes anniversaries as there are people that are there 1 and 2 years. And it says those people are not just loyal to the agency because they've had a great career and they've grown, but they're advocating to bring in more people and contributing to that culture because they live and breathe it every day. It pays out over time because you see it in the growth of the agency. You see it in the talent that we attract and we retain, in the new ideas that are brought forward, the new groups that are formed. Agencies, marketing services firms, we're living, breathing ecosystems. And without the people contributing to it, the ecosystem will wither.
So one last question. We'll kind of do it lightning round style. Don't have too much time left, but cultural or not, what is the one thing that each of you believe that you must do to continue to grow your companies? The one thing. Kat.
Take huge chances.
I'm going to go against what we've been talking about. I think it all still comes back to client service.
So you must maintain excellence
Absolutely.
in client service.
You need the employee base. You need that culture to drive, great product. But at the end of the day, I think most marketers, if you ask them what they're missing, is that client service that they used to get. And it's resonating with them right now when we talk about high-touch senior involvement, strong emphasis on client service. I think that's one of the keys.
Well, I would say relationships are really important.
Oh, I thought we were all just going to become just a big algorithm. Do we really have to have
No,
relationships?
I think our business is all about relationships, and I did this. I did this exercise of looking at the last 10 clients that fired us, and I think there's more to learn from your failure than your successes. And of those 10, 7 of them were because the client changed, and which just, maybe it means that we're not a very good agency. I don't know. That's over a combination of about 7 years. But I think that the relationships, particularly with agencies that they have with their clients, are we the people that they can count on? Are we the people that are going to give them the advice that they need to hear? Do you have that kind of chemistry? And the agency world is littered with these, top relationships were so important to your growth. Lee Clow and Steve Jobs, those kind of relationships are legendary. And as much as technology and data and is so much become part of it, and has become more corporate as companies become bought and acquired, I still think it comes down to people and the relationships and the trust that you can build with your clients. We're still that kind of business.
And I think it's being relevant. And I think one of the things that I read this, and I don't remember where, but I loved it. It was, consumers and technology are moving. And if we don't keep up, if we don't adapt, we don't embrace, we don't have open minds, we will enter into a digital Darwinism. And, we have to be fit to survive. And so I think it's be relevant.
There's a great expression, if you don't like change, you'll like irrelevance even less. I like that one.
Amen.
You got
Amen,
Adam.
girlfriend.
You get to close it all out.
I love it. I would say you have to have a clear vision and a consistent voice no matter what. You have to live that. But don't rest on your laurels, because to the point, everything changes, relationships change, technology change, media habits, people change. So you have to be willing to adapt, but always be clear, always be consistent, because if you have any confusion, those relationships suffer, the culture suffers, and as a result, you might suffer.
And I think, one just sort of wrap-up comment, it sounds like diversification, innovation, all of the catchphrases, but all of you talked about very core principles, whether it was having and clearly articulating a mission, whether it is client service, preserving that culture. So I would venture to say that there are some things that never change relative to growth. Thank you very much for being with us this afternoon. Thank you.